Good evening, viewers. Uh, as always, the Idea Factory is back with a new program to excite and to explore various possibilities with our clients. Today, we are with a new speaker who will, explore various angles beyond the normal regular topic. Today, we have with us a very distinguished speaker, Mr. Sushant Sharma. Mr. Sushant Sharma is a postgraduate diploma in marketing management, NMIMS. He is also an NCFM certified person and is pursuing CII, which is Certified International Investment Analysis from Ikigai. Mr. Sharma has an experience of about 20 years and has worked with reputed companies like Grasim Industries, Birla Sun Life AMC, ICICI Prudential AMC, and Trust Investment Advisors. After spending about 20 years in the corporate sphere, Mr. Sushant has left his job and is currently an executive and leadership coach to vulnerable aspirants and an imposter syndrome expert. He offers business coaching, corporate trainings, soft skills, and image consulting. He also has a branding in the name of scintillatingsushant.com. Over the years, Mr. Sushant has coordinated with major corporate houses like Dabur, Chambal Fertilizers, Hero Fincorp, and more. He is an expert in advisory for startup funding via private equity and venture capital as well. Welcome to the program, Mr. Sushant. Today we are going to, we are discussing a very important topic and a very new one in the Idea Factory platform. It is called orbit shifting and thereby building a long-lasting organization. In this topic, let us hear from Mr. Sushant a little bit more about the topic. And my question to Mr. Sushant is, what are the human challenges in building a long-lasting organization?
Right. Okay. Hi. Very warm good evening to all of you, and thank you, Mr. Abir Majumdar, for such a warm introduction. And it's a pleasure to be here. So, coming back to your question, like, what are the human challenges in building a long-lasting organization? Right. In 20 years of my corporate career, what has I have experienced, and what kind of a exposure I had in terms of dealing with the manpower, the human resources. I mean, I've dealt with the people who are senior to me also, and people who have reported to me as well, right? So I'll just share whatever my inputs are there. What kind of a understanding I have in terms of employees and assessment, and their perspective in terms of that. See, identifying and resolving organizational issues is highly beneficial, I would say, to both the organization and its employees. We need to resolve that. First of all, we need to identify that and resolve it. The quicker you resolve organizational issues, the sooner you create a healthier workplace and focus your energy on the resources on the business matters. Because, right, it's very important to make the entire scheme of things a very productive one. So having good organizational practice promotes a sense of accomplishment and achievement within the company. Organizational improvements can also serve as motivation for an organization, and they keep pushing for new solutions to make proactive changes and to avoid the same issues in future. Now, what are those issues? What can come up as an issues? The first and biggest is the turnover, employee turnover, attrition. That happens the most. By high turnover refers to an organizational issue where employees leave their companies frequently and high volumes. With none of the employees, I've seen so many companies where people, average is like 6 months, 1 year at max. You will not find any employee who is there in the company more than 3 years, 4 years. They keep on shifting. That shows the company doesn't have a loyalty in terms of their loyalty base. They're not looking forward to that approach. So this can take up company resources and cause delays in the company workforce. Some reasons for high turnover rate may include, like, employees are discontent with the management. There's a discontent within the management with the leadership officials. The leadership is not comfortable. What kind of things are happening. The leaders' employee relations there's a conflict of opinions, and they feel dissatisfied with their work and not finding it fulfilling. Then the work nature might be an issue. Staff members are underpaid. Of course, financial remuneration matters a lot. They feel they are underpaid, and they want more compensation for their work. Employees don't believe in their employee hear their voices, ideas, and concerns. When employee feels he's not being heard, That's also a very big issue. The moment he feels that yes, his opinions, his voices are not being, adhered to, at least he's not being given a chance to speak only. That's the time he thinks of getting out of the organization, joining some other company maybe. So employees don't believe their employee. Team members don't see path for growth within the company in such a case. They don't see path for growth in such a case. So that overall hampers the productivity also, and other things also matter. See, employees are basically they want, recently, if I'll just mention one of the article which I saw in a newspaper. If I see 2 days back only, that was a very interesting article. It was talking about, company, they want mentors, not the leaders. They want coaches, not the bosses. If you see the few days back only, there was an article in Times of India. They said that we have to, the new age managers and bosses, they have to manage in the kind of their mentors. A mentor also of a football team, not of the cricket team. Like football, everybody is a player. Everybody is capable as equal as the other players. So they need to mentor, not micromanage. That's very important. Most companies traditionally hierarchy calls on managers and control given tasks, and then rate subordinates on the performance. But today's reality is that youngsters seek empowerment. They want to be empowered. They want to be enabled. Okay, yes, that's very important. So experts say modern problems are too complex and so micromanage will not help any manager. So as a result, they advise managers to become coaches and mentor their teams. And especially given the hybrid workplace, like post-COVID, situations have changed a lot. So we need to, adjust accordingly that also. So the aim should be to improve the ease of working with all the team members, helping them to solve problems on their own. So that is my little initial experience of this. Yes, coming back to, I think as the topic is there, Mr. Abhir, I think we discussed orbit shifting, right? That's as you said, we are going to be, I would like to understand from your perspective, what is Ikigai and what is orbit shifting? What do you think? What is your thought on that?
Right. I think as you were, sharing your experiences on the corporate, I put myself back so many years back while, in fact, both of us were in the corporate experience, and we kind of faced the same thing. Had there been mentors during our times, perhaps we would not also have left organization, because the issue was between the boss and you. But having said that, keeping our personal experiences aside, this indeed is a bigger problem, and let us see how we can solve. Today we are here to show some perspectives and to see to what extent we can try to bring in changes in the existing model of the working model in the corporate. As you have rightly highlighted, that the people stay in organizations for about 6 months to 1 year or 2 years. Here we are on an approach where we are saying that people should stay in organizations for 5, 10, or 20 years. During our previous generation, people got a one job, they lived their whole life in one job. And today we are in a situation where, people are not more than 1 year. Both are extremes. While we are not saying that everybody will stick to one organization throughout the year, but at the same time, we have come to the opposite end of the spectrum where there is no stability, both from the personal point of view as well as from the organization point of view. From the resignation, I think none of them wins, because the person goes to some different organization, a different culture, a different environment with different targets, timelines, and the whole environment is different. Similarly, for the organization, if he has invested so much of time and money for 1 or 2 years, that entirely goes waste, and you have to retrain another person over, and you may not know whether the other person will be better than this person or not. So in the process, a lot of energy gets wasted on both sides, and what is getting affected is the organization. While people would have got their salaries and come and gone, but what got affected is is an organization which got derailed from being built to a large way. So today we are on the focus point. We are focusing on the employee and its relationship with the organization, and to that extent, we are talking about two things. One is Ikigai and one is orbit shifting. Let us see a little bit of that. My own. Let me share a small screen. Can you see the screen?
Yes,
Right. Okay. So while we say that, yeah. So Ikigai is a concept that we got introduced, and this was easy for us because we left our job, and we redefined ourselves when we leave our jobs as to what I want to do. Am I going to continue the dots that I've left from the job? Certainly not. In that case, we wouldn't have left the job. So definitely, we all wanted to do something different and better than what we were doing in the job model. And perhaps we came to the concept of, you call it a midlife crisis, you call it a Ikigai, you call it a, lack of purpose in our life. They all come then to those points. And today, the concept of Ikigai is being placed where everybody comes at some point in their life when they actually seek happiness in what they do and not exactly move from point to point in their lives doing this and that. So at some point, we all try to find out a larger purpose of life. And through that concept, we go back to this book by Hector Garcia and Francis Miralles in 2016. And many of us have actually redefined our activities in that. And maybe this could be a starting point for such problems in organizations where people indeed can look into themselves and can redefine their approach or purposes of life, and to see how organizations can align to that. In terms of Ikigai, it's a different concept, and it's a very long drawn. It's a completely new approach, and obviously, today we are just going to touch upon the point. And so, let us look into a smaller platform. Basically, this is a basic template in which we talk about Ikigai, where we actually start searching for. It's a case of self-discovery, wherein you experience various things and you try to find out what you enjoy doing and whether it is in sync with what you are doing today. So in that respect, you have your what you love to do, and then mix it up with what the world wants. Maybe you are in a world and you're working because it's a revenue model, but at the same time there is a disconnect between what you love and what you do. So at some point we come into a in a space wherein it's a mix and match of what the world wants and what I'm good at, and getting paid for it. That is equally important. Here we are not talking about hobby or something that I want to do on the hustle, not something like that, but definitely as a mainstream activity which I enjoy doing and which the world wants, and how we can bring it together. So I think this is one concept that has to be addressed by organization. It has been long not, the association with the organization and the employee has long been about work and nothing more than that. COVID changed everything. They are forced to look into the personal aspects of people now. People are more compassionate. The world is not the same anymore. So you cannot disassociate the personal life and the professional life from the individual and the organization. And the organization cannot say, I do not touch the personal points of the organization. So once you do that, once you accept the work from home practice, a lot of changes that you are accepting on, you will definitely have to come to this point as well, wherein you allow the individual to get his own, define himself within the organization without leaving. Here we are, both of us, we have left organizations and we have kind of redefined our area of work. But in the process, what we are doing is we want to talk to organizations, say whether people, do they really need to leave your organization and then go for self-discovery, or they can stay within your organization and still do a lot of multiple things to get the happiness that they want. Then there is also another concept called orbit shifting, and we will see how we can mix up Ikigai and orbit shifting also. Typically, the concept of orbit shifting also has a history of a book, and that book is called Orbit Shifting Innovation by Rajiv Narang and Devika Divaya, 2003, which is a very hot topic. Then organizations can shift or change tracks, or to take a completely different route to move forward. So that being the main typical concept, typically it's about taking away from the force of gravity. So it has a connection to the Earth's gravitation force, and whether you can break out of the gravitation force and redefine ourselves. Similarly, it can also be connected to the electronic theory, where electrons, they move out of their orbit from the lower orbit to the higher orbit, and redefine themselves. So basically, we are talking about redefining individuals or organizations. Since the focus today is on individuals today, we are basically talking of keeping the definition of orbit shifting on individuals today, though it starts from organization, but today we'll keep the focus on orbit shifting of the individual. And here is a small pictorial representation where people can actually move from one position and go to the next level, and then to the next level, until and unless organization build up a platform where people can, it is no more about the monetary increase that you get, your job remaining the same, or incremental being connected to the dots, as they say, that if you want to define it by the dots which you have done before, incremental over that, this is definitely going to continue. And here we are us bringing where organizations can also break out from their existing model, and whether individuals within the organizations can also break out from the existing model without shifting from job to job, as we rightly said. So that being the concept, here we are trying to mix and match Ikigai and orbit shifting. And the purpose is to take people from level A to level B within the same organization. As you have rightly said, this cannot be possible if you have the existing practice of a boss-based organization where you are reporting to your boss and he is the A to Z of your existence in the organization. Here we actually need mentors wherein you move from point to point, you can mix and match your roles, and talk to the mentor, and that will actually be built up around that. So definitely I think I agree with you, and maybe this is the way to come where people can move. And perhaps this is the right time to discuss in the post-COVID scenario where people can move from level A to level B within the organization, and that goes beyond the financial remuneration that goes on. I think that being the topic, my next question to Mr. Sushant is, Mr. Sushant, can you tell us what are the perceived changes in organizations towards their employees after the COVID pandemic?
Well, I think your topic and your discussion, what you just spoke regarding orbit shifting and Ikigai, is very much relevant in post-COVID scenario. Also, it becomes so much and becomes so much bang on in terms of what I have understood so far in terms my uh, 15, 20 years of experience in corporate finance. There is a 10-point agenda. I strongly believe as far as employee retention is concerned, as far as post-COVID and pre-COVID also, many of things still goes well. There's a 10-point agenda. The first begins with if they are paid well. The first is remuneration matters. And of course, your matters. The first one. Second is they're mentored. It's not like boss kind of a thing. As we said, we need coaches. We don't need bosses. We need coaches now. We need leaders who can trust us, who can have confidence in our abilities, who can give us strength based on our abilities. They have identified here this guy is good in this. They know horses for courses kind of a thing. If this guy suits this kind of a job, particular job, he will be able to do justice to this. Accordingly, they are going to assign the job of a mentor. So that mentorship matters. Challenged. Another thing is they are challenged also. They are given the right kind of challenges. Yes, I trust you. I believe your abilities. I have seen this, and I'm giving you a challenge that you will be able to do it. So a right challenging environment is also very much required. Then after challenging is, of course, that gets recognized. His efforts are getting recognized. He's accordingly getting promoted also, and he's being involved. Involvement is so very good. In fact, in the post-COVID scenario where most of our people are working from home also, 60% people are like, even Swiggy, I just saw today only, Swiggy has allowed, their manpower, they can work from home anywhere. So many companies, and many even financial companies also, they allowed their employees, they can work from home as well. So in such a scenario, being involved is so very important. Like, how do you involve people? How do you make sure there is a complete reporting? How do you make sure there's weekly meetings also happening? At the same time, how do you make sure they are being involved in the decision making process? Also, there is a certain problem solving abilities also being witnessed in the employees. These things becomes so very important in such a scenario. Of course, then it becomes like, they need to appreciate it. Appreciation is important. Recognition and appreciation of their efforts makes a lot of difference. They need to feel empowered. They need to feel, okay, yes, our efforts are being recognized. We are getting enabled. More of that, bosses or leaders, we need enablers. Someone who's sitting at the top, he has to be act in a kind of an enable. Okay, I am giving you this. I know there is a certain job you need to do. So that delegation of power is a proper authority. There's authority also. There's a responsibility as well as there's an authority also given to the person. So that kind of a scenario has to be given. Of course, trust is so very important. Trust plays a very important role in overall scenario. So these are my understandings of as well as how post-COVID scenario, how things will work and how they should be working going forward. If if bigger organizations are targeting towards retention, promotion, and productivity, and of course overall team building also within the organization, that will lead to a great success. That's how it is. So coming to the next question for you also, just give me a second. I would like to ask you, like, as we talked about orbit shifting, what do you think? What are the basic tenets of orbit shifting? What is your view on that?
Right. As you have rightly pointed out, we can see that there is a radical shift in the way organizations are, re-establishing their relationship with their employees. Okay, a lot of things have changed, which has affected both the organization as the individual together. And here there is a more human approach towards employees. Okay, having said that, here we are also in a situation where people I remember, as you rightly said, that working from home. But we have also heard stories where kind of organizations are forcing other people to come back to offices, whereas the employees feel that the same work can be done from home. Why do I have to go back to office just because it has been the discipline for pre-COVID? So the people are not seeing things the same way. So there are situations where people have resigned from their job because companies have forcibly told them to report to their offices, and that individuals have not accepted because their perception is changed. Having said that, so there's there's a new association between the organization and the employee today. So having said that, here when we are talking of retaining more people, in the organization more and more, you have to take into account the changes that is happening in the lives of the individuals, and also the organization also change according to time. In terms of the basic tenets, as we have already told you, both Ikigai and orbit shifting are very, very deep concepts, and perhaps we need multiple sessions to go deep into each one of them and how they merge together. But today we are going to take a very short and a very small definition of them, typically looking at the orbit shifting as a concept of employees within the organization. Of course, the main tenet of it becomes that whether their roles are creative or not. That means whether their roles are defined or whether that role has an element of creativity within that. Today, my own experience, and as you have rightly said, most of the organization, and especially the larger ones, have roles in boxes. They define the role in the box and expect people to show a lot of innovation and creativity within that box without they themselves opening up the lids of the box. Okay, here we are talking about a situation where there will be a free flow of ideation process or creativity between the organization and the employees, and they will do away with the box methodology. For example, I'll tell you what we are doing at the Idea Factory. As you can rightly understand, Idea Factory is a very small setup, and perhaps is not comparable to the big organization that we are talking about today. But at the same time, what we are trying to do is we are trying to, of course, every role has a job definition. So when we are talking to our candidates, that job definition, what we have created, we share it with them and whether they can relate to us on that. But that is only a guiding document. And we have told them very clearly that your JD is just a guiding document for you to join the organization. Once you join in, you have to take charge of your profile and you have to bring in your perspectives and thought process, of course, with discuss with us so that we bring in the revenue connectivity. Again, as we rightly said, it is not about your personal hobby or personal hustle, but it also has to be something which drive revenue. So taking that JD as the starting point, can you build your JD to something that you would love to, so you can add multiple legs to your JD and connect with us in that way. So basically, over a period of 2 to 3 years, that JD will become only a baseline for maybe 40% of your work, and remaining 60% is based on your competence or interest areas and that which has connectivity to the market. So in that process, we are building a kind of an open platform with our employees, and that will also exchange, ideas between us and them. And of course, there will be a certain financial component associated with the amount of contribution in terms of original contribution in terms of the workforce, not in terms of the defined contribution, but also in terms of the original contribution. That also makes it much more pleasurable for them to work with us, or for that matter, any organization, and go beyond that limit of working from office or working from home. I remember during our days, the time blocking of the hours was very important. That went away, and then people were asked to work. It's only the output dependent. Even the output is now dependent. Doesn't matter from where you work from. You can work from anywhere in the world, but as long as your output reaches the organization at a scheduled time and a scheduled deliverable, it's a great model to work on. Of course, there are secrecy or privacy issues which organizations are already working on. There are cloud-based applications where the privacy is maintained so that you can access the company servers from anywhere, even from your home, which was, of course, a big issue at previous point in time. That also has been changed. And, so gradually employees can, evolve from their existing role to a role that they would love to build on. Okay. Also, they would also like to be involved in real innovation. It is not about, small creativity, but they would also like to build in real innovation where organization is working on big projects. And maybe that idea comes from that employee. I mean, that is a very, old concept when we say that the ideas only have to come from the top, or from the top management, or from the MD, and the entire organization will align to it. That's a very old model and a very closed model. Here, if the idea back and forth, if you're doing it, ideas can, go from even the youngest person of the organization. And if the organization likes, of course, it has to go through a screening process or whatever. If it, likes it, he might be the head of that project in the organization, and that completely takes his orbit beyond the regular process. So if you take, a regular linear growth within the organization as the head of that project, because maybe he has some experience in that zone before coming to that organization, he becomes the head of that project, and that takes his orbit to the next level. These small kind of, creativity based development will do wonders for people within the organization. And as you rightly said, people are not heard. Those things will also automatically have to build in if you build in a mentor model, and there has to be an open contribution, like an email ID or something, where you can go give your ideas or all your thought processes without thinking about the repercussions of what will happen to you. Another important thought that we saw in our organization, that when you work in an organization, you normally don't have a voice. You cannot talk against any of the principles, even if that is wrong. And even if that was wrong then, and that is wrong 10 years later, but you did not have a voice in the organization. I think that has to change. Everybody has to have a voice. You have to have a collective voice. There should not be penalization, of course. For that, you have to build a platform, you have to build a system where people can talk about the difficulties or the problems or the challenges, and also encourage to give solutions. It is not about problems, but also encourage to give solutions, which enables them to look at the organization in totality and not only in their role. Okay, so that you have to, if they want to go beyond the role, obviously that becomes a great empowerment for the individual for that. Also, orbit shifting is also going to a new track without following the dots of the past. That means you have to create a new roadmap for your own self, and not necessarily be guided by what you have done in the past. I think organizations are very closed in that they don't allow experimentation to happen on an individual basis, or exploration on a very basis. I think these are various aspects of orbit shifting that you can start orbit shifting with these initiatives, and maybe you can take it to the next level of that. Okay, so I think these are basic tenets of orbit shifting, and we can talk further on that. But my next question to Mr. Sushant is, Mr. Sushant, how do you think that such initiatives resolve the above human challenges of organizations?
Well, very rightly pointed out by you also, Mr. Majumdar, that employees need to be heard. They need to have a voice in the organization. And that only says that, there is an employee value proposition, EVP. If we talk about employee value proposition, that is so very important. EVP must change the hybrid work and respond to shift to employee expectations. There's a term called employee value proposition. What does it mean? It means where employee sees the value and what is that he is bringing to the company and what value he is getting from the company. So in the ongoing changes in the way people work have permanently transformed employee relationship with experience and work. Hybrid environment, things have been changing right now. It could be a great opportunity to great risk, particularly for diverse talent. This Gen Z, if we talk about the coming up generations, if we talk about the generation which has been coming up now, what are their expectations? They want DEI, that is diversity, equity, and inclusion. Inclusion is so very important. Last 2 years had a lasting impact, trust me. There's a lasting impact of future of work. It's imperative that HR leaders evaluate an immediate long-term impact of these trends and degree to which they change strategy, goals, and plans. Yeah, the CHROs are facing historical challenges these days. Based on my discussions, whatever I talk to the people and all those things, there's a shortage of critical talent also in the manpower today. HR leaders are under more pressure to fill roles with those with critical skills. They need to optimize cost also in the current economic climate as well. These are the challenges they're facing. This creates an internal labor market and makes it easier or more attractive for employees to more jobs without the existing in the company. So this is where DEI becomes so very important. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. They need to be heard. They need to have a voice. And as far as the productivity is concerned, what is the value addition? Even employees are also aware that if they want to sustain in the organization, they have to give some inputs. So those inputs become so very important here. That can reduce turnover also. And very important fact is manager roles are changing now. With few opportunities of spontaneous in-person interactions in the workplace, managers needs to be more intentional. They need to be intentional in establishing and developing relationship with their team members. The manager-employee relationship is critical, and shaping the employee experience and connections in the organization. CHRO, the role of CHRO need to provide managers with the proper tools to become human leaders and manage employees, career perceptions, well-being, connection to the organization culture. As we spoke about Gen Z is something like, the latest generation. Anybody who's born after 2000 or 2005, I think it's called Gen Z. The younger generation is comfortable with the hybrid working. They are actually comfortable with hybrid working. Even if, as you said, companies are asking, okay, you come to office and work from there, they want more of a hybrid kind of culture. Shorter work weeks are there. Nobody wants to go even 5 days also to the office these days. 2 days, 3 days is sufficient. Rest you can work from home. As you said, productivity can be reached from anywhere. You might be working from anywhere, but productivity can come. So the younger generation is comfortable with hybrid. Having finished their education and entered the workplace during the pandemic, the experience has left something to be desired. Remote working is about continuing connections and built-in person, maintaining a flexible schedule. And the needs of these entry-level hires will impact decisions surrounding office space, in-office onboarding support, and development opportunities also. Everything is online these days. Even the induction process is online. I'm sure you must be aware, right? So you just need to, it's not like earlier they used to have 4 days induction program, and it's all there's a software. You just need to download it and listen to it. That's it. Just go through. There's an online induction process, and shorter work weeks are there. Data collection is expanding. Another thing is 16% of employees are more frequently using technologies to monitor their employees. So there's also data. Even before the pandemic, organizations were increasingly using non-traditional employees method. So I would like to, go for the latest article which was there in TOI, which gave a lot of insight in today's, the mindset is a talent that coming in such a way that the level of empowerment they want is that level of freedom to their creativity. Creativity and innovations are so very important in today's world. And that gives a lot of insight actually. So my last question to you, Mr. Majumdar, will be how will you establish profitable organizations evolve through such initiatives?
Right.
How will stable organizations evolve through such initiatives? If you can answer that.
Right. Yeah. We are in the last 4 minutes, so I might have to rush to the last point. Basically, we have just started the discussion. It's actually not so simple that we can finish it off so quickly. So I'm sure there are so many thought processes that might come to your mind as well as my mind.
Yeah.
But here we are in a limited time period, and obviously we have to bring it to a conclusion based on whatever discussions we've had today. Now, basically the whole purpose of the entire exercise that we are trying to do is to, re-establish a happy relationship between an organization and employees of the organization. In various ways that suits both of them. That does not mean that there has to be a fine balance. It does not mean that it is truly skewed towards the employer, or is it truly skewed towards the employee? Here we have to strike a, because both are working on a common goal. And having said that, if both are working on a common goal, and if individual goals and milestones are connected to larger goals and milestones of organizations, definitely I think there has to be free flow of exchange of ideas between the organization and the employees. And typically, as you rightly said, and as we say, now we have everything has become so online. There is a school of thought which says that the bonding between the organization and the employees, or the employees themselves, it's not so much, and all those things. But we can still maintain. In fact, if you and me, we are in remote, and we are we can build association on a remote without being physically present. And with digital technology, why would you need so physical things? That doesn't mean we take away the importance of the physical. That doesn't mean because we have enjoyed working from home, the physical is automatically transferred. No, but as you rightly said, it has to be a blended model of operation between the both of them. And more important, there has to be a structured model on which every employee has to work within the organization. But the change that we are trying to bring in is also to bring in a certain amount of unstructured element into it, which is kind of customized or individualistic in the nature, so that his own creativity, his own capability, it becomes a differentiated profile over a period of time, which means that every individual handles portfolios which is within the organization, which may not be connected to the same boss. I mean, he could handle three pockets of areas which might be connected to three different people with different KRAs. And as long as he knows the KRAs, he knows the commitment, I think it would work perfectly fine. So if he has identified three areas of capability which he enjoys doing it, these are old model, and in the old model, he would be doing only one part of it. In the new model, he engages himself in three different areas, and he works with three different teams around that. I think that would be a wonderful, redefinition of the role in which he can define himself. Okay, these being the, basic tenets, and since we are almost at the closure of the discussion, let us also assume that these kind of initiatives are meant for, mostly medium organizations and larger organizations, and not necessarily the startups and the MSME, because the larger organizations have the bandwidth to listen to employees and you use them for better applications. Also, this is meant for the junior most as well as the uh, middle management employees who can change their track over a period of time. Of course, we have to exclude the top management from here. So, but this is meant for the junior management and the middle management. There are umpteen possibilities of changing track within the organization without, having to shift organization, hop and skip between organization. And tomorrow we want to see, we want to help organization